queen to tell her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasant's Perspective. I had my microphone muted. There's a little mute button on the microphone itself. Apparently, I tipped it when I pulled it over to my face. All right, good morning. We are going to kind of slow things down just a little bit, let people shuttle in. I took the advice of one of our listeners, my dad. He said, you should start the show at 6:29 because there's like a minute delay to make it live. Otherwise, it starts at 6:31. I was like, yeah, sometimes at 6:29, Ron's not even in his chair. So, well, I thought today I could hit live at 6:29, make that happen. Oh, I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to be moving offices here in a week or two, maybe a little longer. I don't know. We'll see. And we'll have to decide what to do then. If we're going to keep the show at 6:30 or maybe bump it back to 7 or bump it to 6 a.m. I don't know. We'll see. Pony Boy, good morning. John Atakis, good morning. Good to see both of you guys. Thank you for joining. Had a good show yesterday. Lots of unique views. Lots of people hung around for a good part of the live show. It was nice. It's nice to see the show bump a little bit. Wonderful advice. Good morning from Idaho. Yes, thank you very much. I was asking Ron, I was like, why don't we move to Idaho? And apparently his wife had a roommate from Idaho that she didn't really like, so she can't move to Idaho because she's got a bad taste in her mouth. I'm like, you had one roommate from Idaho that gave you a bad taste in your mouth? Anyways, it's kind of funny. Oh, people are funny. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and jump into our first clip here today. This is breaking news, big news. Good things are happening. They just did a revision on Q3 GDP, and guess what?
Now, on the GDP side, this is our third time around the block on Q2, and we see a really solid revision, 3.8%. I'm a bit shocked, to be honest. Usually the revisions, as you get to second and third, become smaller and smaller. So 3.8% would be the best quarter going back to, and we have to go back a ways here, to 4.4, and that was the third quarter of 23. Now, it is important to point out that if you look at the first quarter final, down 0.5%, there's a balance there, but the balance is moving in favor, and momentum is moving in favor for better growth. Now, on the
Okay, so we've got GDP numbers came out this morning, and this is like breaking like minutes ago. Barely got it added into the show, but woohoo! Economy's going up. Now, they did a revision earlier in the year for a little bit down, but that's okay because if you revise this one up, excuse me, we're trending up. So whatever Trump's doing with the tariffs, it's causing GDP to go up. Even with the deportations happening, it's still causing GDP to go up. I think that's pretty good news. Another piece of news broke yesterday. I'm going to try to do how I do this just a little different. So what I do is I make the screen shared, but then what happens is I can't see what I'm doing next. So I want to make an adjustment to make this work better for me. You guys agree with that? I'm sure you do. Okay, so how can I do this now? It doesn't really work the same, does it? Thanks for watching the sausage be made, guys. I appreciate it. Yep, at the new office, we're going to have to do like a 3-monitor setup for me. There's just no way around it. Just no way around it. Okay. Meanwhile, I will share this with you. This is other good news. Now, I don't actually remember if I played the clip on housing and Dowd on the show about housing and how he expected a huge crash coming. But this is really good news. It's kind of the opposite of that. One of the concerns we had was that new housing starts wasn't going up.
Some breaking economic data coming in much better than expected. New home sales rise 800,000. An annual rate, the estimate had been for 650,000. That also means that the sales percentage change month over month is 20.5%. The expectation had actually been a decline of 0.3%. Some breaking economic.
We've got increasing GDP. You've got increasing home starts, which is a big deal. Yeah, that's really bad audio when it's left on like that. Increasing home starts, which is a really big deal. And now, another thing happened yesterday. This was yesterday. This is the Department of Energy. So just like the Department of Environmental Protection Agency, just like the EPA was getting billions of dollars back. I think the number was like $18 billion of quote gold bars that the Bidens were dropping off the back of the quote Titanic as he was heading out of office. Well, the Department of Energy kind of had the same thing going on, and they've done a clawback.
So what's the announcement this morning?
So my Department of Energy has announced we're going to return over $13 billion to the taxpayers. That's over $100 per American family. This was money passed and slated to be energy subsidies. But we need the subsidies have been corrosive because they've not only cost taxpayer money, but then they've led to more expensive electricity bills. We lose twice. So we're doing everything we can in the Trump administration to stop the rise in energy prices.
So money that was going to go to green energy, to subsidize green energy, is instead going back to the Treasury?
Yes.
So I thought that green energy was going to be like an all the above, like a part of the energy dominance platform. Is this take it off the table? What's going on?
With green energy, and again, I don't agree with the name, but with solar and wind and electric vehicles, which is where most of the money has gone, they've just barely gotten to 3% of United States energy and 2.5% of global energy. So it's just been a massive malinvestment. We've made electricity more expensive. We've pushed industries and jobs out of our country, haven't moved the needle on global greenhouse gas emissions. It has been, as the president said, I think he rightfully characterizes it as a scam.
Green energy is a scam. So they're concerned. They're like, well, hold on. I thought that we were supposed to have like all this green energy and, you know, this whole new way of doing it. And he's like, look, you have to subsidize it. And let me explain this to people. Green energy projects, windmills and solar panels, don't pencil out. Ron explained this years ago. He's like, the problem with all the green energy thing, and this is what engineers look at, because you can ideologically want these, and then you have to figure out the engineering problem. They don't make more energy than they take to make, right? Or they don't make more energy than they take to make. By the time you get them installed, get them stood up, the period of time that it takes to get to where you've recovered that energy is to the point to where they're starting to need repairs and fixes. So you don't ever really recoup your investment. So what the government does is it subsidizes it. Oh, you want to do a solar farm? Okay, well, we'll kick in, 90% of the cost of the solar windmills. That's subsidizing it so that your cost basis is 10%, and then you can, quote, be profitable. But the problem is that energy, even at 10% financing, they still charge more than you would for other methods of electricity production. So now the consumer pays more for the electricity. So not only does the government pay, but then the consumer pays higher because green energy is more expensive even when it's making energy. So we get bit on both ends. So it's better just to get rid of the subsidies, go all coal, go all gas, go all nuclear, and then we just pay whatever the electrical rate is. It's paid for by the market. It's not paid for by this centralized top-down decision-making where it's like, well, this is what we want. This is what's good for us. So that's really actually pretty good news. So we'll see how long it takes. One of the things I remember, this is years ago now, so I don't know if it's still true, but I went to this hunting cabin and we were up basically on a mountain, like above the foothills, kind of at the last peak that you would call a foothill before it becomes the mountain, right? So we're way up on this foothill, which had an amazing view of the valley. And off to the side, you could see this massive windmill farm. I don't know, 150, 200 windmills. It wasn't the biggest windmill farm I've ever seen. I grew up with my dad commuting on the Altamont Pass in California. That's a big windmill farm. Even 30 years ago, there were thousands of windmills, right? Well, this one was maybe hundreds of windmills, maybe, right? It wasn't huge, but it was big. And they'd been up for a long time, and most of the windmills were not spinning. It was windy, but most of the windmills were just like locked in place. And the guy that owned the cabin that knew about that project, he didn't like it because it really screwed up the view. It made it kind of an ugly view, right? And he goes, the sucky thing about those windmills is they're not hooked up to the grid. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, they got all this money. It was some project with the University of Washington. They got all this money to build the windmills, but they never actually got all the right easements to connect it to the grid. So that's like still going to happen. So you had these windmills that are depreciating, in the weather, getting worn out, not being used. I'm sure there's a lot of corrosion and stuff that happens because I know how metal and electronics work when they're exposed to the atmosphere and to the, they're not being used. And it's like, and they're not hooked up. Like, what's the point of that? It was like some project they did that was like a vanity project or something. It's really stupid. Carlitos, good morning. Debbie B. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Love the good news. I know. It's so nice to get good news and see the economy getting better. There's doomsdayers all over the place, right? All over the place. I don't know, man. I split my time between being 50% worried about the economy, which is, at this point, it's like baseball. It's an American pastime, worrying about the economy. But then I spend the other 50% of my time worrying about politics and political pressure and tyranny and stuff like that. And I'm not sure. I think the economy can kind of deal with itself. Most of your economy is personal, right? It's about your personal bank account. I can handle that. It's the bigger stuff that I can't handle. So I actually experienced this. I went through debanking. Right after I got arrested for January 6th, I don't remember exactly when, but it was 2 weeks later. It wasn't very long. I got a letter, and my business got a letter. My business partner got a letter saying that we had 2 weeks to get all of our money out of Wells Fargo, or they were basically confiscating the money, or they'd probably send us a check. I don't know what stupid thing they would do, but that we were being debanked, that we were a national security threat and could no longer bank. Now, I had attended January 6th. My business partner had not. He had nothing to do with it. He still got debanked. So this is what Brian Kilmeade, and I don't know the co-host standing next to him. I'm sure I'll see his face better here in a second. But they talked about this, about the debanking that was happening, and it still could potentially be happening.
The problem is when it gets political, okay? And that's what Eric Trump was saying here. So here's what happens, okay? You've got debanking, fine. It could be good, it could be bad. It depends on why you do it. The problem, let me point you to it, is this one right here. Okay, so bank regulators now for several years have said, if a client gives you reputational risk, we're going to scrutinize you. Now, the question is, what does reputational risk mean? Well, it turns out it means whatever you want it to mean. And if you're Obama or Biden, it could mean conservative causes you don't like. But the problem is
So reputational risk is cause enough for them to debank you. I think that's kind of where they fell with us, was, they called it reputational risk because you've been indicted. Anyways, I don't know. It is time for a shameless ad read. And before I read this ad, last night, my wife was like, I need to expand my mind, so let's not watch TV at night. And I was like, okay. I was watching Love After Lockup. I was like, I'm winding down. I'm watching an episode of Love After Lockup. A little bit of nostalgia from prison. I'm actually getting to the point where I can look back on prison, like nostalgically. And so anyways, she wanted to read a book. So I fell asleep last night with my wife reading a book to me. It was awesome. If you're hungry for truth in a world of noise, check out the books coming out of the GK Publishing. The GK Publishing over at gatekeepersonline.com. This is a bold lineup of authors who refuse to bend the knee to cancel culture or compromise on truth. We're talking books like Church and State, How the Left Used the Church to Conquer America, featuring Pastor Greg Locke, Denise McAllister, and Dr. Michael Brown. Social Injustice, exposing the false gospel of social justice movement, with contributions from Jeff Dornick, Brandon House, and Dr. Andy Woods, and others. The 5 Steps to Kill a Nation by Pastor Sam Jones. They've even got Dr. Robert Lopez's Cancel-Proof Christianity on pre-order right now, as well as Dr. Dornick's upcoming book, Following the Leader, which exposes the cult-like loyalty people are placing in political figures. And that's a problem on the left and right. There are voices you won't hear on mainstream platforms. These books challenge, equip, and inform a biblical and constitutional foundation. So head on over to gatekeepersonline.com right now and grab one or all of them. Support real publishing and fuel your mind with the truth. Get free shipping when you use use code RUMBLE, RUMBLE, at Gatekeepers Online. So go check that out. Last night, my wife was reading The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, and it was awesome, guys. I fell asleep to my wife reading Ayn Rand. I was like, I have died and gone to heaven. It was awesome. I probably only stayed awake for like a page, but it was like the coolest thing, man. Anyways, I highly recommend it. Get your loved one to read Atlas Shrugged as you're going to bed. It's really fun. So gatekeepersonline.com for some great conservative books. Okay. So the other thing that is good news, I'm starting the show out with all the good news before we get into the hypocrisy and James Comey's going to get indicted and all that stuff. We're starting out with just good economic news in general, but also some warnings. One of the things I very much appreciate about this administration, unlike the last administration and the two administrations prior to that, is they kind of give it to us with the bark on, right? We get good information and we get bad information. Donald Trump is a cheerleader. Everything's great. America's experiencing its golden age no matter what is going on, right? It's up, ever and away. But all the different cabinet secretaries, they're doing real, true, substantial things. Like you just heard from the Department of Energy clawing back $13 billion. The Department of Environmental Protection Agency doing the same thing, also getting rid of a lot of regulation. Right now, we currently have no commissioner for the IRS. It's been absorbed by the Treasury, which I actually think is probably a good thing. There's pressure on the Federal Reserve, right? If there's a wart in the system, it's being exposed, and good things are also being exposed. This is one of those things that this is kind of a wart in the system. There's a problem with our food supply, with beef specifically. But the fact that we're talking about it, it's being addressed, and it's being addressed by people who think they can do something about it positively, is a very good thing.
Okay, so the halting of the cattle trade with Mexico, and a lot of Americans don't know that we get so much of our beef from Mexico, but we do. So it's drastically reduced compared to the first half of 2024. So we've bought 63% less live animals from our southern neighbor.
That's right.
So is there a concern that our costs are going to continue to go up because affordability is a big issue for American consumers? I was just at the grocery store this morning. Yes, I go to the grocery store. Thank you very much. And there were two steaks. Yeah. It was $33 for two steaks at the grocery store. And these weren't fancy steaks. They were just like, maybe they were little filet mignons. I don't know, but they were little. Yeah. $32.
So here's the thing. We talked about eggs months ago when the price of eggs were so high. The problem, the challenge, I'll say, with our cattle and our beef industry is that it takes 2 years from calf to slaughter. But Laura, here's I don't know if it's the silver lining, but the long-term vision, just like our manufacturing that we have offshored for years that you've been such a leader on, we've also offshored our food, our beef cattle, our citrus. So much of this we're now importing from other countries like Mexico. This is a massive flag for our country. If we can't feed ourselves, this is a national security issue that has to be solved.
A national security issue that is so critically important, feeding the American population. We, the peasants, need some cake, right? Let them eat cake. We need a consistent food supply. And it's inconsistent when you're bringing it across oceans for something you could be raising in your backyard. Listening to the show this morning, we have a couple cattle ranchers. I know, because they talk to me over at 1776 Live, and I know they tune in regularly, right? Cattle ranching, farming, these are critical infrastructure positions. They're often overlooked. And part of it is because a family farmer can have two jobs. Like, dad can work at Ace Hardware and also have a couple cows and pigs. It is a big deal. One of the best things I ever did in my life was get a small farm. I had cows, horses, mules, pigs, chickens, the whole thing. It taught me so much about respect for the people who make our food. One of the craziest things, and it's almost become a joke, but it's a real thing. Ask a little kid where milk comes from. Do they know it comes from a cow, or do they think it comes from the grocery store, right? So knowing where our food comes from. I appreciate things like that. She says, look, it takes 2 years. They've got to change policies. They've got to change things in order to empower the American rancher. And obviously, you can have these big mega ranchers. They can go at scale. They can increase their herds a couple percent. But the reality is where you really need to get that relief is with the local family farmer, the guys that are running around on 10, 20, 40, 100 acres. These are small micro farms compared to the mega farms of today. But these are the micro farms that can feed whole communities, right? A 100-acre farm, can basically be the private meat production for a small town. It can be pretty significant, and we need to return to that. Just absolutely no doubt. And another piece of good news, and this is a massive geopolitical strategy that is unfolding in front of us. So I'm going to talk about this Ukraine-Russia thing in just a second, but this is the piece of information we needed to know because this is the linchpin in this entire conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
They are taking action in Europe to displace Russian energy, maybe not as fast as we'd like. America stands ready today to displace all of the Russian gas that goes into Europe and all of the Russian refined products from oil as well. So I spent 6 days over there meeting with European leaders, assuring them we have the capacity, we're ready to serve their needs. And President Trump's agenda is peace. And to get peace, we got to starve Putin. But they are taking.
Okay, so to get peace, we've got to starve Putin. Let's understand this entire thing here. This conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So let's ignore why it happened. Well, let's not ignore why it happened. It happened because NATO decided that they wanted to have Ukraine as a member state, right? And this happened years and years and years ago. And so there's been this slow expansion of NATO policy and all the kind of things to set up the situation where NATO could become, or where Ukraine could become a NATO member state. This was a red line for Russia. They've said it for well over a decade now, not doing this. So the closer Ukraine got to NATO and the closer Ukraine started to interfere in Russian politics and propose a real threat, according to the Russian, things like the biolabs, the 27 biolabs that Victoria Nuland told us we had in Ukraine became a problem, right? They didn't like that. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on Russia didn't like. There was the election in 2014 over the Crimea Peninsula, and they were annexed into Russia. There's just all kinds of stuff. Nonetheless, Biden kind of opened the door for Russia to invade when he said, well, a small incursion wouldn't be too bad. Well, this is what a small incursion looks like. So along comes Donald Trump, says he could settle the thing, wouldn't have happened if he was president, blah, 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 blah. Here's the deal. Ukraine has been buying diesel from Russia while they're actively fighting them. So in order for Ukraine to be able to fight on the front lines, they have to buy diesel from Russia, who then uses that money to fight them. So that's a problem. I believe Ukraine has started to purchase diesel from somebody else, but that was going on for like the first 2 years. Then Russia sells natural gas and oil to Europe for their domestic energy needs. So Europe is paying Russia, that's a cash flow, that they can then use that cash flow to supply this war. Big problem. So Trump's come in, he's tried to negotiate, nothing works. He's basically washed his hand for it. And he has set up a situation where the United States, no matter what happens, is in a win-win situation. So simultaneously with telling Russia, hey, Donald Trump essentially is like, look, you've lied to me a couple times, Putin. You haven't done what you said you were going to do. We're not any closer to a ceasefire. So America is washing their hands with it. This is between Ukraine and Russia and NATO and Europe. Okay. Now, the United States sells weapons to Europe. They're the biggest contributor to Europe, or to NATO, excuse me. And basically the whole NATO armament is made with American weapons. So Trump says, I'll continue to sell weapons to NATO, except he's also pressured the Europeans to step up buying weapons. Simultaneously, he's told the Europeans to stop buying oil from Russia. So here's the situation he set up. And I wrote this in Telegram in our Peasants living room. I imagine Trump is being clear. So the question was this. Because after Trump's UN speech yesterday, Marco Rubio went to go speak with Sergei Lavrov, for high-level talks with Russia. And the comment from our listener is, I hear you, Taylor, but it's a dangerous tactic. Trump spoke about Ukraine gaining back most, if not all, their lost territory, which I'm assuming also means Crimea. So Trump was like, hey, we can push Russia right back to the border and maybe even farther, right? If Europe all gets engaged, they can do it. And here's what I think Trump's doing. I imagine Trump is being clear. He won't fight or directly support Ukraine. It's NATO's problem. Since they wanted Ukraine to be part of NATO, they can support them. Trump will sell weapons endlessly at a U.S. profit. Win. Europe will end up paying for a lot of it. Trump won't back down in making Europe pay. That's a win for Trump. What this means for Europe has a few choices. They currently buy energy from Russia, and they, like the U.S., getting weaker by directly funding the war. But now that's changing. Trump's not going to directly fund the war. He's going to profit from it. And we are ready to sell gas and oil to Europe to completely replace Russia, which would cut Russia off financially, which is their lifeline to keep the war going. Trump admin also announced today that our energy production is scaled up enough that we can immediately replace all the energy Europe is buying from Russia. Europe will immediately begin being drained at both ends, buying oil from Russia to continue the fight and having to buy military arms from the US to continue to fight. Paying Russia for oil and the US for weapons, or they can take a shift. They can buy oil from the US and starve out Russia. That's a big deal, probably lessening the amount of weapons they have to buy. And or they can buy oil from the US and weapons and actually push back to the Russia border and probably toppling Putin politically in the process. If Trump provides NATO with weaponry and Europe pays and Europe starts buying oil from America and not from Russia, and they do a advance and push back to the Russian border, that will likely cause a political downfall of Putin. Okay, because he has detractors inside of Russia, right? We look at it from the outside and we think it's all totalitarian and he's completely in charge. That's not the case. There's hardliners, there's moderates. It's just like here in America, right? They have their own domestic political issues. So there's a good chance if he has a complete flat face on this Russian war after spilling their blood and treasure at 1 million Russians, it could be a really bad thing for him. This kind of has everybody in check. Not quite checkmate yet. Lavrov is probably negotiating Russia's next move. Trump's superpowers he can change on a dime. Thomas Jefferson said, in matters of fashion, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock. Trump is staying true to his principles while being able to change fashion and tactics on a dime. His rock is America first. No matter what way Europe, NATO, Russia, or Ukraine have it at this point, the U.S. is in a position to win, no matter the outcome. Trump just offloaded a potential Russian victory, should Russia go to victory, to NATO and Europe. He'll blame it on them buying oil from Russia and not buying enough arms, both of which he has criticized in the past. So it'd be consistent. So if Russia now wins, Trump can blame EU and NATO and wash his hands of it. Trump has created a win-win-win-win situation for the United States. So that is my assessment on Russia. That was a big deal, the fact that we are able to replace the oil supply. Now, another thing was this. J.D. Vance gave a speech and he started talking about FEMA, and he started talking about the wasted dollars at FEMA and redirecting their energy and resources. Again, this is another one of those like, I'm so happy with the Trump admin. They're calling a spade, calling out our problems, warts and all, and providing us with real, like, common sense solutions to fix it, some of which are hard politically, but they're right for us. PB Brown Scouts, Guten Tag. Yes, good morning.
With CBS News, you said in an interview with Newsmax yesterday that FEMA was disaster relief was being used to fund to focus on migrants rather. Donald Trump also said on Truth Social that most, if not all, of the money that FEMA spent is on migrants. FEMA officials say that's just not true. What evidence do you guys have to suggest that?
So here's the evidence. And by the way, I just want to make an observation about these reporters, and I appreciate the question. Is when people say that they feel endangered by a crowd voicing their opinion, well, look, my friends, the First Amendment goes in both directions, and so you haven't made this criticism, to be clear, But I read some article. It was in I forget who published it, but they were like, well, journalists don't feel safe at some of our events. Look, not a single person here is going to harm you. They're just going to speak their mind, and they have every right to do it. So God bless you guys. The First Amendment, we believe in it in this country. But sir, my point is about the focus of our current administration. And if you use resources, but most importantly, if you put people on the task of dealing, let's say, with a massive influx of illegal immigration, then they're going to be distracted from doing their core job of keeping Americans safe in response to a disaster. Each of us, this is true of me, it's true of everybody in the world, we only got so much time to focus, and there's only so much time in the day. And if you take FEMA and you turn it into an agency that resettles illegal immigrants, that's going to take their focus away from keeping people safe after a hurricane. That's basic human reality. And I think there's no way around it. Now, what the fact checkers say, and we'll sort of, we'll try to be as fair to the other side as possible, my friends. What the fact checkers will say is, well, there's a bucket of money that goes to illegal immigrants, and that's a different bucket of money that goes to disaster relief. Well, I'm sure the Biden administration has never moved money from one bucket to the other. In 3.5 years, In 3.5 years, we know that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are more than willing to move money from one bucket to another if it suits their purpose. They ought to be moving money to the bucket that supports American citizens in the wake of these terrible storms. That's what I would like them to do. But the final point I want to make about this is just bureaucratic focus. Look, I've seen a lot of wild stuff out there on the internet. The problem with what I've seen from the Biden administration is that they're not focused on getting resources to people that need it. When Kamala Harris is out at a fundraiser in San Francisco, meanwhile, North Carolina is drowning, North Carolinians have every right to say, where the hell is our vice president and why isn't she focused on us? That focus has got to change. The 82nd Airborne, and this is in 2010. You're never going to hear me praise Barack Obama. You rarely hear me praise Barack Obama. But in 2010, there was a terrible earthquake in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. A ton of people lost their lives. A ton of people had their livelihoods destroyed. The 82nd Airborne was in Port-au-Prince, Haiti under Barack Obama 48 hours later. North Carolina is an hour away from the 82nd Airborne's headquarters. Why did it take a week to get the 82nd Airborne on the ground helping America?
I misspoke and said that was a recent event. That wasn't a recent event. That was an older event. But the idea there is the same thing, right? Money is fungible within the United States government, and they need to direct it to where it actually benefits the American people. The Democrats have been doing this. They've been directing it to their grift, right? The Trump administration is using those same powers to redirect their money to where it needs to be and cutting off money that's siloed in quote unquote buckets that can't be used for other purposes. Donald Trump understands the system. Okay. He understands it really well. He understands how the grift works. He understands how the fraud works. And why does he understand it? Well, Dave Chappelle explained it best, because Donald Trump has used the system and he knows exactly how to fix it. And he's been telling us all along.
I've never seen a white male billionaire screaming at the top of his lungs, this whole system is rigged. And the moderator said, well, Mr. Trump, if in fact the system is rigged, what would be your evidence? Remember what he said, bro? He said,
I absolutely used it, and so did Warren Buffett, and so did George Soros, and so did many of the other people that Hillary is getting money from.
No one ever heard someone say something that true. And then Hillary Clinton tried to punch him in the taxes. She said, this man doesn't pay his taxes. He shot right back.
See, I understand the tax code better than anybody that's ever run for president, and it's extremely complex.
And then he said,
she complains that Donald Trump took advantage of the tax code. Well, why didn't she change it? Why didn't you change it when you were a senator? The reason you didn't is that all your friends take the same advantage that I do. Hillary Clinton has friends that want all of these provisions.
And with that, my friends, a star was born.
With that, my friends, a star was born. That is Trump. When I think of Trump, I think of someone who, like he said, I'm in their club. I'm one of the elite. I know how it works. I mean, who better to go in with a populist agenda and an absolutely committed American first mentality and get rid of all of that corruption and all of the grift and all that stuff. I mean, you realize currently right now the IRS is under the Treasury. Like, he's talking seriously about getting rid of the IRS. I don't know if he'll be successful or not, but good gravy. These guys are just doing very, very well. Now, Joe Scarborough, now we're going to get kind of onto the topic du jour of the week. It's not du jour, it's not of the day, but the topic of the week, right? The topic of the week is the Charlie Kirk assassination, the fallout from that, the contrast of the Charlie Kirk assassination and the reaction to it with the Jimmy Kimmel cancellation and the reaction to that. And then, of course, you've got these competing narratives. One narrative is that the left is behind most of the political violence in the country. And then the other narrative is it's actually the right that is behind the political violence, but that stirs up the left somehow. And so if the right would just chill out, then the left would be okay. I think that's kind of like saying, the beatings will stop when morale improves, and they want you to get your morale improved while they're beating you. It's kind of one of those dumb things. Like, it can't really happen. But we are definitely at a one side's got to win, one side's got to lose. But this is Joe Scarborough talking with Mika, trying to call out J.D. Vance, acting like, well, J.D. Vance is wrong. The Republicans are the ones who commit most of the violence.
And why? Why do they do this? Like, why is it so important for them? Instead of trying to bring the country together, Why is it so important for them to try to tear us apart? Why are they doing this? Why is J.D. Vance continuing to lie when Cato, when CSIS, when every other study shows that the predominance of political violence in America has come from the right? And again, you don't hear me saying, oh, this is all the Republicans' fault. What you hear me saying is these people are crazy, and we, the 90% of the sane people in America, we need to come together and move the country beyond this and be a better example for all. I don't know.
That's leadership. What we saw from J.D. Vance is not leadership.
And why?
These people make me kind of sick. Why does J.D. Vance continue to lie? I'll tell you why J.D. Vance continues to tell the truth. It's because J.D. Vance gets his information where the information is not censored, like Rumble. If you haven't already, make sure you download the Rumble app. It's free, simple to use, and the best way to stay connected to the content you want. Once you've got it, search for my channel and hit follow. That way you'll get the notification every time we go live, so no missed shows and no extra steps. And please do not forget, those of you that are listening, there's enough of you listening right now, go in and hit repost on your Rumble app so it reposts. Even if you don't have any followers, whatever, hit repost. It tells the algorithm that people like it. And of course, don't forget to hit like. It is making a significant difference in our growth curve, our trend. So please help me with that. You can grab it right now using the Rumble app by using the link in the description or the pinned live chat. Download it to your phone and you're ready to go. And if you prefer watching on the big screen, Rumble is available on all major streaming devices and smart TVs. Just search for Rumble, follow the channel, and be part of the action. And don't forget to follow Peasants Perspective. Yes. And those of you that are listening on YouTube, we're happy to have you guys. Google parent company that censored conservatives, including myself, right? It's super big mea culpa yesterday. Oh, we'll let all the accounts back on YouTube. Rumble is the place to be. Rumble is where people went to. Rumble protected free speech when the Biden administration was chasing it down. So thank you for listening on Rumble. Those of you that are on YouTube, it's just a lost leader to get you over to Rumble. So get the Rumble app and come on over and join us in our real home, which is at Rumble. Okay, so Joe Scarborough is pushing this idea that the violence is coming from the right, but here's the problem with that. So this is something that we showed quite a while ago, and this where did this article came from? It came from some article, another one of these studies that was done. There's more diversity of thought on the political right than on the political left. Although they pride themselves on open-mindedness, the left, the liberals, thinking actually coalesces around a very narrow set of opinion, whereas the right diverges widely. So they've created some kind of graph based on people's online stuff. The left is siloed in a really, really tight little network here, right? They have very few talking points, very few things, and they're kind of tied in, whereas the Republicans have a much larger universe of information, right? They have a lot more questioning, a lot more doubting the official narrative, doubting the conspiracy narrative, right? They have a much larger depth of understanding. So this figure 2, extracted attitude network, a visual representation of the extracted attitude network, revealing a distribution of 40 attitudes into 2 clusters. So that's what it's showing here. So the right has a lot more diverse political opinion and sources of information. This is Don Lemon with a man on the street interview. Now, I have a hard time with man on the street interviews. I think Frazier asked, are you not doing X anymore? I'm just not streaming on it since I'm doing it by myself. I don't know. It's just one extra thing to manage. We'll probably do it again when Ron gets back. Okay, so but I think sometimes like streaming on X and all the extra channels, it bleeds off our audience on YouTube. Like when I don't stream on X, I end up getting a couple of you guys come over to Rumble to watch the show because I think sometimes it's convenient on X. You can watch Rumble while you're watching, scrolling X or whatever, but I get better credit for it on Rumble. Let's just be honest. I prefer you all listen on Rumble. Okay, so these man on the street interviews, I don't really love them because AI took over the man on the street world. If you're watching, like scrolling through your feed and you see a man on the street interview, there's a better than decent chance that it's AI. It's actually really sad. A lot of it's kind of ruined the man on the street thing because frankly, the AI for man on the street, it's very difficult to differentiate. And some of the people who used to make their bones on YouTube and whatever doing man on the street interviews have created their own AI, right? So they're like pretending they did man on the street interviews with these AI because they're really funny takes, right? And you can't really tell because it's a real person's channel that traditionally used to go out and really do these. And now they're doing them through AI. So I'm just saying, be careful. But this Don Lemon one is real. And he's interviewing people. I presume he's in New York City, and he's asking about, violence and the shootings that have been going on. And listen to this. I'm going to have to do the whole share screen thing. This is concerning.
As things are getting more dangerous, marginalized communities need to get armed. Trans women in particular. I think that it's just so dangerous out here right now. I mean, I know that DC is just a congregation of high school class presidents. But if you go out in Baltimore,
What? Oh my God.
you go out in Baltimore, you
Hilarious.
see signs everywhere that says armed trans women, armed trans women. And it's because they're the most vulnerable people right now, I could imagine. They're praying for blood on the right wing. I think that as things are getting more
So on the right wing, you're vying for blood, want to go after the transgenders. And so this guy's solution is you need to arm the transgenders. This is the party of guns are the problem, right? Like Chuck Schumer just famously the other day, well, I don't know the ideology of the shooter, but we need to get rid of everybody's guns. If we just had no guns, these crazy people couldn't have guns. Yeah, again, here we go. But now your solution is to arm the transgenders? What? And here's the thing. This retardedness, this trope that the violence from the left and the right are equivalent gets puppeted even on Fox News. This is Trey Gowdy, concerned that the shooter yesterday in Dallas at the ICE facility that shot ICE officers, that the shooter was actually shooting at illegal immigrants who were being detained to be deported at an ICE facility. So somehow Trey Gowdy is kind of putting this on right wing.
I do want to know if he was shooting at detainees, then we got a problem, because due process does not include a citizen taking a shot at somebody, no matter how long they've been in the country and now no matter how illegally. But if they're, I do want to know if he was.
So Trey Gowdy, I want to know, is he shooting at migrants? What? That would be counterproductive. If you hate migrants, you're not going to shoot them at the ICE facility where they're being deported. You shoot them in the Home Depot parking lot. Come on. I apologize. I'm not a call for violence. It's just a rhetorical statement. Anybody listening? But come on, common sense. You're not going to go to an ICE facility where the people are being deported if the motive is hate of immigrants. That's the stupidest logic I've ever heard. Okay, that's like antithetical to the criminal mindset at all. Right? You don't. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, it doesn't make any sense why he would even think that way. But then again, it's Trey Gowdy, and he's kind of notorious for being that way. But that same sentiment was being puppeted over at MSNBC, where they were again trying to grasp at straws to associate this with the right. But before I do that, Birkenbean. All right, Taylor, I'm visiting you from YouTube. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us over where free speech lives on Rumble.
Inspired? Are you worried about copycats?
Yes. I don't know if the rooftop trend is going to be a thing. I mean, it could just be coincidental that the best vantage point just happened to be elevated positions in this case. But, people emulating this kind of attack is certainly a concern. The irony with the writing, the first time we really saw that was Brenton Tarrant in the Christchurch shooting in a mosque in New Zealand. And he was a fierce, white supremacist and neo-Nazi, and wrote all over his weapon and his rounds, very hateful information. So to see this coming from, potentially the other side of the political spectrum is a little strange, because it is not something, if you are trying to, carry out some kind of message countering, more extreme right-wing stuff. I don't know why you would, use a tactic that a famous white supremacist who has been revered and copycatted over the years by other white supremacists, why you would do that. But it does appear that people are moving in that direction because they want people to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. Again, terrorism is theater. They want people to understand their message and why they're doing this, and why, in some cases it's a narrow act of violence, and it's not supposed to be a mass murder, although it looks like it's moving a little more in that direction.
So they're trying to connect the Christchurch shooter in New Zealand years ago, right? That all these are copycat shooters of the Christchurch shooter, and that the Christchurch shooter was far right. I don't believe the Christchurch shooter was far right. If I'm not mistaken, he went on a liberal walkabout, went and walked all through Pakistan and all this kind of stuff. If I'm not mistaken, he went so far left, he became a nihilist. That's not right wing, guys. Like, right wing is not anti-God. Listen, I'll accept the argument that crusaders are far right. Okay, I'll accept that argument. People who want to kill in God's name, I'll accept that might be far right. But people who want to kill in the name of no one, in the name of nihilism, in the name of lack of faith in humanity, right? Those people, that's not far right. That's far left. That's the opposite. Okay. Far right would literally be a religiously motivated killing. You could probably say that Islamics are far right, even though they express Marxism as their political ideology. So we would really correctly label them left politically, but far right on the religious point is it's stupid. If someone's this idea that it's just every shooter must be far right, or if it's a left-wing shooter, they were driven to it by the far right. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's all inspired by stuff like this. This is Gavin Newsom. Okay. The day before there's a shooting at the ICE facility, Gavin Newsom says this.
That's happening in the United States of America. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process. No oversight, zero accountability happening in the United States of America today. People ask, well, is authoritarianism, you're being hyperbolic? We're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here in this country. And so I'm deeply proud that I had the privilege of signing the nation's first bill to address the issue of masking, also to require you have simple identification, to your point. I mean, if some guy jumped out of an unmarked car in a van with a mask on, tried to grab me, I mean, by definition, you're going to push back. And so these are not just authoritarian tendencies. These are authoritarian actions by an authoritarian government. You saw what Stephen Miller said last week. This should put chills up fine. Called the Democratic Party an extremist organization. Basically a terrorist organization, saying he's going after his enemies. You saw the tweet that Donald Trump sent out, Truth Social, basically telling Pam Bondi, I want these 3 people taken out. That's happening in the United States.
Yeah, Pony Boy, it is mental gymnastics that these guys got to do. It is mental gymnastics. They can't live the cognitive dissonance that they might be the baddies. You know, they just might be the baddies. Cognitive dissonance. The thing is, the reason that the Democrats are effective is because, on its surface, Trump put out a tweet saying you need to go after these people and they're my enemies. Why are they his enemies? Oh, I don't know. They weaponized the United States government against them. Oh, well, did they? I thought Donald Trump did do those things. I thought he was a convicted felon. Didn't he commit 34 felonies? Right? Isn't he a rapist? Like, that's the kind of stuff they put out there, the dog poo in the birthday cake, so to speak, that then when you're, thinking you're just being a good, open, liberal, progressive, you just want the best for your neighbors. And all of a sudden you're like, how did I end up on the side of chopping kids' genitalia off? How did I end up on the side of snipers going after government officials? How did I end up on the side of high tax rates and, grifting? And like, the more you become aware of this, it's like, yeah, that's the problem. The Republicans right now are doing some of the things the Democrats have been doing for a long time. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, now that it's turned around on us, it's a huge problem. JD Vance says he thinks that his Democrat knowledge need to ask some very hard questions as to why it is that folks on their side of the political aisle seem to be engaged in these politically motivated attacks. And yes, Pony Boy, like you said, it's mental gymnastics because over and over again, you get these left-wing motivated attacks. And of course, the trope is always January 6th. Well, January 6th, Donald Trump started it with January 6th. First of all, completely ignoring anything in 2020, as if 2020 excused January 6th. But the January 6th protest was nothing like these No Kings, BLM, Antifa protests that happen out there. Nothing like that. First of all, you went to the people who could actually resolve your concerns, right? If you're actually trying to make a difference, go talk to the congressman. So there we were, right, to redress our grievances right there at the Capitol. And on top of that, that whole protest had more to do with lack of law and order, a double standard of justice, and a stolen election, which, by the way, for most of us that pay attention, the jury is not out on that. The election was stolen. But even if you were to say otherwise, I would definitely not say that 2020 has been completely adjudicated. So here's JD Vance talking about how the Democrats really need to look in a mirror.
I do feel pretty confident this was a motivated left-wing political attack, and that I think goes to show that we have way too much of this in our country, especially in the last couple of weeks. And I'd encourage everybody to really tone down the rhetoric when it comes particularly to our law enforcement and our ICE agents. These are people who are enforcing the law as it's written by Congress and as instructed by the President of the United States. The fact that they've become such a target of online, social media, and even political harassment, I think, thank God most people don't intend to do them harm. But as we find out today, some people do intend to do them harm and they'll act on it. So I think we all need to tone down the temperature a little bit. I think in particular, my Democratic colleagues need to ask some very hard questions about why it is that folks from their side of the political aisle seem to be engaged in these politically motivated attacks. And I think it's important for them to look in the mirror and say, wait a minute. Can we look in the mirror? Can we actually take some steps to police some of the violent rhetoric on our own side? Because unless they do, I fear stuff like that, this is going to keep on happening.
It's going to keep on happening, true, unless, and every time I come off the video, my sound gets all garbly. It is going to stay true until the Democrats do a little mea culpa. And by the way, can anybody think of a time when the Democrats have done a mea culpa? When the Democrats have been like, oh, yeah, sorry, man, we did you dirty. You're right. Nope, ain't ever going to happen. But they're continued gaslighting. They're continuing to just not acknowledge reality. I love what Michael Knowles said. No, we're not debating about the truth right now, okay? There are some things that are just facts, and you need to either get on board with those facts. If you want to challenge them directly, that's fine, but you can't just throw them out the window. Well, here's another one of these situations where this kid, and this is Megyn Kelly, she's at some kind of Turning Point USA. Now, all the right-wing influencers are starting to fill in for Charlie Kirk and go out to these events and, stuff like that. Well, she's taking questions from this guy who is clearly brainwashed, and I say that truly, brainwashed by his education. Listen to how passionate and militant he gets in this discussion about Charlie Kirk's shooter being inspired by the right wing. And, shouldn't the right be upset about that or something? Just, again, asinine. Megyn Kelly does a good job of shutting him down, but he mentioned something here that Megyn Kelly didn't have the right information to refute. And that is this report that the Department of Justice had on their website previously that said that most of the violence in America came from the right. We'll address that in a second.
Why you support a president who contributes to the rhetoric that got your friend Charlie killed. We saw his rally recently. He said, I hate my enemies. Stephen Miller said similar things. How can you support him when he contributed to what got Charlie killed?
Assumes facts, not in evidence. What you said is not true.
70% of political violence is committed by Republicans.
Okay.
Look it up.
That's not
DOJ
true.
just pulled it. The DOJ just pulled it from their website. DOJ just pulled the study from their website because they're delusional.
That's not true because
they just pulled it. Look it up.
Once you pull
pulled it from their website.
Once you pull the crazies out of there, it is overwhelmingly left-wing violence.
Google it.
We have had
every single person in the audience. Google.
I don't like that once you pull the crazies out of here, it's left-wing violence. What crazies are you talking about? Is there like a mass shooter? Is there what is the crazies? Because the left could say, well, if you just take out all the mass shooters, right? That doesn't quite make sense to me.
Google it right now.
This is how we get here. So first of all, let me take on the first part of the premise of your question, that it was President Trump's rhetoric that led to an assassin killing our friend Charlie Kirk. That's a blatant lie. It's a defamatory blaspheme, and it's inappropriate in this setting.
That's not what I said.
We know. Yes, it is.
No, I said he contributed to the political atmosphere.
Well, then you have no point.
Tension.
Then your point is utterly empty. Contributing to the atmosphere.
This
guy was let's just make clear. This guy was motivated by leftist ideology. We know it from the bullet casings. We know it from the Utah governor. We know it from his own mother. Yes, we do. Let's be really clear on that.
Even if that's true, so then you're saying, because let's say this guy's a leftist, even if that's true, does that make it okay for the...
Think about the cognitive dissonance this child is experiencing right now. He refuses to believe that his side, this is again, your masters have weaponized your virtue. Violence is bad. You can't do anything that's bad. Don't do things that are bad. Don't be mean. Don't say mean things. Don't hit anybody. Okay. And now that your side is doing the mean things, the violent things, doing the assassinations and the hitting, you can't possibly imagine that people that were taught like you that violence is bad could be the ones doing violence. So you can't own it. You have to deflect. You have to justify your behavior because you don't actually believe that you have agency and can make your own choices. That's what this all boils down to. It's like the thing that differentiates the right and left. The right believes they're responsible for their own choices and the left do not. They want to deflect responsibility for their choices to someone else. That's the cognitive dissonance he's struggling with in his mind. Mom and dad told me he was a good little boy, but how can a good little boy support a murderer? So now you've got to dance around it. And like Ponyboy says in the chat, mental gymnastics.
The sitting president of the United States to incite violence against liberals?
The president of the United States has not accepted violence against liberals. The president of the United States made a joke at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, which was funny and self-deprecating. It was on the heels of Erica Kirk saying she, in an extraordinary moment, forgave her husband's killer.
He
and let me finish. And then President Trump got up and making a joke, playing off of what Erica said. He said, we disagree. I need to do better. Erica's going to try to convince me, but I'm in a different place. And that's completely normal for a politician to be thinking about his political fights. And by the way, Trump has every right to loathe his enemies. They tried to put him in jail for the rest of his life. They tried to bankrupt him.
So.
They tried to put his family in jail. And they tried to kill him.
Criminal. Jack
Okay,
Smith.
Wait. Okay, now you go.
Oh, so now he's yelling, Donald Trump is a criminal. Jack Smith, something, Jack Smith. Idiots. Sorry. Good person, I'm sure. I'm sure his mom loves him, but his brain has been wiped. And here's the unfortunate thing. They hide amongst us. Kid like that, a couple more years, gets his teaching certificate. Next thing you know, he's your kid's middle school teacher. That's what we're experiencing right now. Right? You have no idea who these people are. And I mean it sincerely. These people, right? No, you have no idea. You have no idea the people that are out there that literally don't believe that they have agency and that they should be responsible for their choices. They want to deflect everything good and bad in their lives. If it's good, it must have come from the state. If it's bad, the state will fix it. I can't make any kind of decisions for myself, right? I always forget her name. Tarlov. Tarlov was on the 5, it's her show with Greg Gutfeld, and Greg Gutfeld had a little bit of it out with her because, again, she's trying to pump this line that the violence comes from the right and the left. The violence comes from the right and the left. And I'll tell you, Greg Gutfeld, he's a voice for reason out there. He's pointing out, using a little bit of humor from time to time, the inconsistency in their article. 2 things can be true at once, Jessica Tarlov.
I think that I said anything worthy of that level of explosion.
Your rationalization of both sides is, you have to understand, since Kurt's death, there is no both sides anymore, Jessica.
Why did the DOJ take down the study that showed how much right-wing extremism?
What study was that? Which one? The one in The Economist that was sponsored by a group run by a guy in Antifa?
Okay, so that's the study that other boy, that MSNBC and CNN, the DOJ just took down the study that said all the violence was coming from the right. That was a false study. It was always false. It was always a fake study. It was written literally by Antifa. This is the same problem we have over at the CDC. Does Tylenol cause autism or not? I don't know. Tylenol themselves put out a tweet 10 years ago saying that we don't recommend pregnant mothers take Tylenol. Bad idea. But all of a sudden, we're like, well, but we said it was safe. You said it was safe because your people got bought off. This idea that all this right-wing violence, and Sapphire Patriot points out the crazy that Megyn Kelly was referring to as gang violence in prisons is included in that, quote, right-wing violence. Yes, absolutely. Any white crime inside of a prison is going to be categorized as right-wing because, yes, white guys in prison are basically assumed to be white supremacists. So prison violence gets chalked up in those numbers. I literally watched a Vice documentary where a guy was saying in America, all the right-wing violence is in the prisons. It's not on the streets. That's what he was saying. It's all of it. 100% of the right-wing gang violence they deal with, right-wing, as in like white supremacist stuff, is prison-oriented. So yeah, if that's the case, that's true. And there's, by the way, a lot more Mexican and black violence in prisons. It just doesn't get categorized as right-wing terrorism. So let's let Greg Gutfeld continue.
Study that has been discredited by the Federalists. You're walking down a really bad alley right now.
Federalist?
Yes. Yes. I actually did see, Jessica, I did the deep dive on that study. That study was authored by a project that was run by a guy who says he was an Antifa. That is why that whole thing has been scrubbed, okay? It's real simple. You label someone a fascist or a racist or a Nazi, it makes you free to attack them, and that has been the ideology from the start. It's weird.
So why?
No.
Is it okay
Let
when
me
Donald
talk.
Trump does it.
What?
Just tell me why it's okay.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Great. I'm enjoying this.
Okay. You won't be for long. The left calls Trump a hate monger. They've called me a hate monger because I ridicule the left. I ridicule protesters. I ridicule academia, Hollywood, the news media. I make fun of The View every day. I make fun of the UN. Guess what? No one acts on the things that I say because my side doesn't do that. We say people are stupid. We say people are wrong, but we don't say they're evil. That is your game, okay? And then you come and you say, okay, man, this is a mentally ill loner. Well, who do you think does this stuff? It's not Ben Affleck. It's not Tom Brady. It's not even Carrot Top. People who do this stuff are always that way. The question is, who points them in that direction? Why pick ICE? Why pick Kirk? Why target TV stations and put bombs under Fox trucks? Why vandalize memorials? Why kill kids in Catholic schools? Two things can be true. A person can be mentally ill, and you can be guiding him to that place in his life. That is how brainwashing works.
That is how brainwashing works. You get someone that's mentally ill, that doesn't understand logic and reason, that can get caught up in ad hominem arguments, and you take that person and you never give them a foundation, never give them a compass with a North Star on it, never give them the ability to independently decide for themselves the difference between right or wrong. The state will tell you what is right or wrong. And if it's wrong, it will fully give you license to go out and fix the wrongs. That's what's going on. And you get these mentally ill people that literally cannot decipher right or wrong. When you have gotten to the point where you're sitting on a rooftop in peacetime in your own native country, taking out another citizen, you've lost the plot. You've lost the plot. That's not protest. That's not making your voice heard. That's not, quote, fighting for your country in a rhetorical way, right? No. You've lost the plot. Now you have become evil by your evil deeds, right? That's the point here. You've taken this whole generation of mentally ill people that you've pumped up on drugs, people that you've taught an education system where there's no right or wrong, everything is relative, right? And then you wonder why, with the governor of your state says, ICE is Gestapo, ICE is bad, ICE is doing all these horrible things. You wonder why someone climbs up on a roof and does what they do, right? Elon Musk has a simple standard for judging between right and wrong, good and evil when it comes to politics and big agendas. It's pretty simple. It's a litmus test that we could all use. It's, again, very simple.
Which side is the good side and which side is the bad side, by which side wishes to restrict freedom of speech. The side that is restricting freedom of speech, that would have been sort of the Hitler, Stalin, Mussolinis of the world. They had very strong censorship, very strong restrictions on speech. That's one of the signs that they are the bad guys. And so, in fact, a restriction on speech and large government is fundamentally fascist, obviously. So ironically, in pushing for censorship, it makes it very clear that the left is the side that is against freedom, and freedom of speech is simply one of many freedoms that we should have as a civil society, because ideas should win on the strength of their arguments. They should not win because they are suppressed.
So it's easy to tell. The side that has to silence the opposition is the bad side. It's not that complicated, right? It's not that hard to figure out. Censorship, no bueno. If you are like me and are absolutely tired of censorship, you might want to take a little fishing trip, which is something I am very much looking forward to do at some point, hopefully in the near future. All right, anglers, if you're ready to fish remote lakes or quiet rivers in total stealth mode, check out the Nevada Fishing Float Tube from Caddis Sports. This U-shaped beast is built for serious fishing missions, ultra stable, super maneuverable, and tough as nails thanks to heavy-duty ripstop material and double-stitched seams. You get a padded backrest, oversized seat, 2 large gear pockets, rod holder, stripping apron, and even a dry fly patch. Everything you need to stay locked in and ready when the bite is on. Fluorescent accents keeps you visible out on the water, and carry handles make it easy to haul in and out. Whether you're chasing bass in the shallows or hiking into alpine trout lakes, the Nevada Float Tube is built for the job. Use code RUMBLE at checkout for 10% off your order today. That's Caddis, Kaddis, sports.com. Get out there, stay light, and catch the big one. Caddis Sport Tubes, very fun. I love fly fishing, man. It's like one of my favorite things to do, and I honestly haven't done it in like 15 years. Gotta go. Someone needs to invite me, take me to their hole. Ever since I moved to Washington, I haven't fly fished maybe but once or twice, and it literally has to do with I just don't know where to go. Fishing's like one of those things. You got to have someone show you where to go. All right. Now, getting a little bit conspiracy oriented, I find this fascinating. Again, on this idea that the right and the left have a difference of how they approach free speech and the marketplace of ideas. I am going to show you 2 videos that are conspiracy oriented with regard to the Kirks, specifically Erica Kirk. I don't know Erica. I didn't follow her before this. There's certain things that in very private discussions, if I ever were to have with you, I can lay out all of my prodigal son problems with Erica Kirk and some of these are heroes, are right-wing influencers. I'm like, how do they get forgiven for some of the stuff they've done? Okay. But anyways, so this is a conspiracy theory that goes with Erica Kirk somehow being involved with Israel and maybe being an Operation Monarch, MK Ultra type person. This stuff is out there. The reason I'm showing you this, why would I give this any air? Here's why. Anything you dive into, any organization, whether it's Turning Point, the Mormon Church, the United States government, you're going to find good and bad. You're going to find things that leave you with ambiguous questions where you get to decide, do I decide that this is the truth or do I decide that this is the truth? Things that we will never know, right? It's highly unlikely that Erica Kirk is going to come out one day and be like, I've been groomed my whole life to do this. You know, it's probably not going to happen. She might not even know if it's true at all, right? That's the problem with this stuff. You cannot look back and go, oh, this is what it is, unless people make open admissions and stuff like that. So when I see stuff like this, I just put it into my filing cabinet. Okay, there's something to look at. So 5 years down the road, if Turning Point is implicated in some giant scandal, I might look back at this and go, oh, maybe it's worth a little bit of a deeper dive. So I'm showing this not to be offensive at all. I'm simply showing this, that this is one of those things where you've got one measure to judge by. One, by your fruits, ye shall know them. Okay. We always have to give people the opportunity to change. This is another thing, a principle that we as peasants have to have. I don't hate my enemies. Why do I not hate my enemies? If you think in the New Testament of the story of Saul, who then became Paul, Saul was the greatest of persecutors of the saints. He stoned them. He oversaw their prosecution and persecution. But one day he saw the light and the scales from his eyes came off and he saw the truth. And what did he see? That he was the persecutor of the saints. That same zealotry that he took to persecuting the saints, he then applied to missionary work to grow the body of the saints. The early church needed Saul and his zealotry to convert and become the greatest missionary the world ever saw. We needed to leave the door open for a man as evil as Saul to become as righteous as Paul. Same guy. That is a Christian principle. So I don't necessarily care where you came from, but I'm going to judge your fruits. By your fruits ye shall know them, right? It's like what Donald Trump said at the UN. Any system that creates trafficking of children is inherently evil, no matter what your intentions were, okay? So I'm going to judge Turning Point USA by the fruits of Turning Point USA. But I'm going to become aware of these things because, as always, we just want to have open eyes. That's the difference between conservatives and Republicans. I just want to see the world for what it is so I can make my judgments and conclusions. So, again, sharing this, not because I endorse it. I'm sharing it because I want to put this as information because this stuff does come up. If you read the book Transformation of America, it will chill you to the bone. And I presume the book is true. I don't need to talk about it here, but for the few who do know about that book and what that book entails, this makes sense.
Yeah, so Republicans in Israel might have shot themselves in the foot with this Charlie Kirk thing because Erica Kirk's story is coming out and the Republicans are freaking out over it. So if you don't know what's going on, Charlie Kirk's wife won Miss Arizona, a beauty pageant, when she was, I think, 17. She had never contested before. Someone just told her, hey, you could be a beauty pageant. And guess what company she worked for? Guess who she worked for in the beauty pageant? Donald Trump. Right after she won the beauty pageant, she ended up creating a Christian ministry that works with children and went to go work with the Romanian government. So now you have all these conservatives on TikTok and on Twitter asking, what kind of power does a 17-year-old have to create a Christian ministry to go work with the Romanian government, to go for orphans? Now, here's a funny thing. At the same time that her ministry was in Romania working with the Romanian government, Romania went through a massive case of children missing. So the Romanian government kicked her, like her Christian organization that was in Romania to help Christian babies. The Romanian government told her to get the fuck out the country because something just doesn't add up. Because her ministry is linked with too many children going missing.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I swear, go on TikTok, go on Twitter right now, search Erica Kirk. That's all you'll see. Everyone is talking about how the fuck she was.
So again, I don't endorse this. It could be completely fake, but this is the point. Whether this is true or not, how are you going to know? How are you going to know? And it's, in my opinion, just a little bit of background on the whole MK Ultra thing. It's not an impossibility. So as a peasant, I have a tool. I have to judge based on your fruits. So I don't think that that's the case by any stretch, but I'm watching the landscape. I am watching the Israel AIPAC lobby. And, Charlie was very clear about the influence of Israel and how frustrating that was. I'm very aware of all that stuff. I'm also very aware that if you're going to take out a movement, kill the leader and then infiltrate it, right? This is, by the way, this is basically what happened with Al Sharpton and I think Jesse Jackson after Martin Luther King was killed. It's kind of like a divide and conquer strategy. It's possible. I am not making any claims or allegations. I'm just putting the information on the board, putting it in our quiver in case we ever need to revisit it. Here's another one, Stu Peters. Who's Stu Peters? Well, he's the one that Kash Patel pretended like he didn't know, even though he was on his podcast 27 times. Stu Peters is connected into a lot of these people that are running around the Trump administration. He used to be a DJ and a security guard turned podcaster, kind of like how I used to be a septic guy turned podcaster, right? So no problems there. But he's been doing, he's notorious for kind of going deep on issues and being a right-wing, I don't know, we'll just say he covers conspiracies, right? Kindred spirit, I guess. But this is him talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination and the bullet. I'm only going to play a couple minutes of this just to show you that on the right, A, we're open to debate and discussion, and B, this is where, just like with the Erica Kirk thing, it creates that seed of doubt, which isn't bad. It's not bad. Once in the confusion, you can come to your own conclusion, right? Once you can come to your conclusion, you can stick with it. But we want to be open. We want to pay attention to the fruits of things. If Turning Point all of a sudden starts turning out right-wing militants, we know the fruit is bad. The left just took it over. They don't care if it's left or right. They just want militancy, right? So we're just going to sit back and kind of watch. But this is Stu Peters basically calling out the FBI and everybody pumping the Charlie Kirk assassination narrative and basically saying there's something that we do not know. Oh, I'm going to have to share the screen. Again, I'm only going to play a couple seconds of it. I actually really don't like these topics because they're fresh and painful, but we have to pay attention in real time.
Tyler Robinson didn't kill Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's Israeli security detail killed Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk's assassin is caught on tape. Blake Bednar has brought us this video. We'll break it down. Take a look at this. Here it is from the wide angle. Watch Charlie Kirk's right side of his t-shirt. Watch the lavalier lapel mic. Do you see it explode? Let's bring it in just a little bit closer. Watch this. Put it in a freeze frame. That is the explosion from Charlie Kirk's lavalier lapel mic. Want to see it again? Bring it in closer. Remember when we told you that that was absolutely an exit wound? Yeah, it is. Check the trajectory of the round that was deployed from that lavalier lapel mic. That went directly from Charlie Kirk's lapel. That went directly from underneath Charlie Kirk's white t-shirt up through his neck and created the exit wound that we told you was an exit wound immediately when we saw that exit wound. First we had exploding pagers. Now we have exploding mics. Do you remember the vector analysis from John Bray? That proves that all of the activity came from the mic that Charlie Kirk was wearing.
Okay, so I don't want to go deep on that. I really do hate the magic bullet theory stuff. You know, the bullet come this way, the bullet come that way. Charlie's dead, right? The fruits, Charlie's dead. Who shot him? They're pinning it on Tyler Robinson. By all accounts, seems to be the person. I don't love the text messages. I mean, there's a lot of things we don't love about this, right? And there's a lot of people like, you know, you've got Steve Bannon's got people on his show every day talking about the bullet, talking about the chat groups, talking about the chat messages, the confession online. It's very sus. Everything's very sus. So I just want to show that. I'm going to put it in the quiver. These are our right-wing weirdos, right? They are probably wrong. High probability they're wrong. But unfortunately, conspiracy theorists are batting like 5,000 at this point. So it's hard to dismiss that stuff. I don't want to dwell on it. I just wanted to mention it. Now, Donald Trump trolled Joe Biden and the Democrats really bad. My wife sent me this picture. Okay. She sent me this video of the hallway at the White House with all the pictures of the presidents. And then when it gets to where Joe Biden was, it wasn't exactly a picture of Joe Biden. Donald Trump is such a troll, man. It's awesome.
Tonight, the People's House now has a trolling hall. The White House revealed a new presidential walk of fame with photos of presidents in order. But if you look closely, there is one particular president missing, or rather represented by something other than his face. Instead of a photo of President Biden, there is a photo of an auto pen. Hilarious, I suppose. I mean, I don't know.
I'm looking forward to the auto pen responding to this, by the way.
Feels very beneath the office, but I guess go for it.
True or false, the auto pen signed more things under Joe Biden's last year in office than Joe Biden signed.
I mean,
is it really trolling if it's true?
Doesn't Trump use the auto pen as well?
I promise you, when it comes to pardons and clemencies, it's going to be his own signature. Like, he actually shows up for work and doesn't take naps in the middle of the day. He had a 4-hour work day.
Let me just tell you,
his own team said
I will only vote for the Democratic candidate in 2028 that
I believe
removes Trump's presidential portraits and replaces them with photos of him and Epstein. So many photos of him and Epstein. More photos than me and my own grandparents, I feel like. It's just Trump
I'm
and
still
Epstein
looking forward to the auto pen responding to the outrage over the auto pen. I'm
I think
excited
everyone has
about
to
it.
listen to Kimmel and just like take the joke. I mean, it's funny. We got to laugh. And frankly, there have been Democrat presidents that have had way more offensive things that are beneath the office.
Like what?
Name one.
Monica?
I mean,
but he just
dress?
mentioned Jeffrey Epstein. So look, my only point is that this is beneath the office. And I just remember back in something that I actually can remember when Republicans on Fox News and everywhere else were completely outraged about Barack Obama wearing a tan suit or having a selfie stick. This is how far we've fallen. Now we have somebody who actually has decorated the halls of the White House, making a joke. I mean, I just find.
Hold on, did they or did they not put Hunter Biden art in the White House? They did, and it made the money, the value of the art go up. So and then they sold said art. So let's dial that back a little bit.
It's a complete scam show, man. Oh, well, I remember when the Republicans said it was beneath the office. Yeah, and you guys said it was no big deal. So here we are, under the table. You know what I mean? If it's beneath the office, here we are with you. We're all beneath the office now. Now, he did mention the Trump and Epstein thing. There was a undercover video that James O'Keefe released yesterday from this gentleman. He worked at the CIA, and he was talking about the Epstein stuff, and he used to be an investigator for the FBI. So somehow he's one of those fusion people that works in both. So we're going to listen to a couple seconds of this just to get the gist of it. We don't need to listen to, actually, no, it's minute 30. We'll listen to the whole clip here. But he's basically saying, and this is coming undercover video, that all the Epstein files that he's been through, and he's been through them, and he's interviewed a lot of witnesses, no connection to Donald Trump.
How long have you been working at the CIA?
2008.
Okay.
I also worked at NSA though. And then I had a TSSCI with a full scope polygraph. And that means that I'm fully vetted.
Amjad Fasisi shows her his CIA identification badge.
No, where does it say?
Does it?
Hey, that's the point.
That's the point.
What's CMC?
China Mission Center, darling.
I got the wrong video. This is the wrong video. That's okay. You guys are all cool. Anyways, point is, he had a video that this guy was CIA. The guy that he talked to was an FBI investigator. He'd been doing it for 20 years. And he says he's been through everything, investigated everybody, and there's zero connection with Trump and Epstein and kids, right? Sure, flew on the plane. Sure, they were neighbors. But he said there were rapes that occurred on that plane, and Bill Clinton was on the plane, not Donald Trump and other leaders. He said Donald Trump is protecting the other people. Clear eyes. The people that he's protecting are clearly in very powerful positions that, should those positions lose credibility, undermines the entire world system. Clearly, that's what's happening here. And judge him one way or the other. In my mind, it's rip off the Band-Aid, just do it. But some people think the system is more important than individual justice, I guess. So be it. All right. The other thing too here is the Trump admin is getting ready. They're about to charge James Comey. So as we bring the show home, we're going to be talking about justice.
And just to be clear here, President Trump wanting a prosecution of James Comey, does it matter what the charge is, or he just wants his political enemies charged with something?
Well, I think to prosecutors it matters. I mean, I don't think that the president is necessarily the closest observer of the criminal law, but I do think that for prosecutors, they realize there has to be a case that they can argue.
And just to be clear here.
So, Jake Tapper here is like, doesn't Trump just want to punish his enemies? Isn't that all there is to it? And she's like, well, that might be what Trump wants, but the prosecutors will need a real crime. Now, I kind of look at it and I think, no, the prosecutors don't really need a real crime. If you flash back to James Comey and what he said, say, for example, about the January 6th grandmas walking through the Capitol, I don't know that you really need a real crime. What you really need is for your opponents to feel the weight of the federal government.
How important is it for the FBI to track down those responsible and follow up on it? Even though it may be incredibly time consuming. And for some people, it might just be a case of trespassing.
It's important that every last person who entered that Capitol be found and charged. They need to feel the force of the rule of law. That they need to feel the American people's will to make sure that we're a country that doesn't accept attacks on our democracy. I know my colleagues at the FBI are honored and excited to do this work, and will do it 24 hours a day until they find every one of them. We live in extraordinary times where the president and his enablers have tried to motivate people to violence.
Oh, the president and his enablers tried to motivate people to violence. That wasn't my motivation, and I was there. So I'm just saying. But think about that. Even if you just went into the Capitol, James Comey's opinion was every single person needs to feel the full weight of the federal government. The process is the crime. So we'll use the measuring stick by which he chooses to judge. Hey, Jim Comey, if a law was broken, if you revealed classified information or anything, then you need to feel the full weight of the federal government. And you know how heavy it is, don't you?
We're also getting reports that some accountability may be taking shape for one of the most high-profile figures in the Russia collusion hoax, former FBI Director James Comey. Multiple sources confirming to Just the News that the Justice Department is in the final stages of deciding whether to seek a federal grand jury indictment in the Eastern District of Virginia, accusing Comey of giving false testimony back in September 2020 when he denied that he had authorized leaking any classified information. Now, this indictment is based on some documents that Just the News, if it happens, remember, the indictment hasn't been handed up yet, but if it were to happen, it's based on documents we made public back in August that show the federal prosecutors had evidence that Comey did indeed authorize the leaks of classified information, while one of those was confirmed by his former chief counsel. That's a pretty big deal. One of Comey's other advisors was recently subpoenaed by federal prosecutors in that criminal probe. So activity is ramping up. The deadline for the statute of limitations is next Tuesday. So if they're going to bring those charges, it's going to have to happen between now and next Tuesday. All signs are, though, that the prosecutors are heading towards a possible request for an indictment. We'll see if the grand jury hands it up.
So we'll see. Now, there's additional reporting on this. MSNBC says it might not just be Virginia where James Comey is getting an indictment. It might be in other districts. For example, District South, think Florida. This is kind of a big deal.
Three sources familiar tell MSNBC former FBI Director James Comey is expected to be indicted in the coming days. The full extent of the charges being prepared against Comey is unclear. Joining us now, MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian and MSNBC senior investigative.
Now, what's important to know about Ken Delanian, or as Bongino used to call him, Deep State Ken, I think it was, is Ken Delanian is a mouthpiece for the intelligence apparatus. If they need a fake story, they need a media narrative planted in there, Ken Delanian's their guy. It's well known. Everybody knows that. Any denying of that is just, you're a retard, okay? Ken Delanian does all of the CIA and intelligence community's bidding. Everything from reporting on Russiagate and the PP dossier and everything. He is clearly a puppet. If you want to talk about Operation Paper or Mockingbird, there's one of your guys.
Correspondent Carol Lenig, Chris O'Leary, Ashley Parker, still with us. Carol, help us understand the reporting.
So, Katie, we have some sources who say that for several weeks now, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia, and actually in offices that are potentially much further south than Alexandria, have been eyeing ways to indict Comey, and they are getting very much closer. The statute of limits, rephrase, they are arguing that Comey, there is evidence to suggest Comey lied to Congress in his testimony on the Hill in September of 2020. And for viewers out in the audience who may not be legally as nerdy as me and Ken, I'll just say that there's a statute of limitations to charge people with the crime of lying to Congress or perjury, and that's 5 years. The 5-year statute runs this month.
So what exactly is he accused of lying about, Ken?
Of course, the clip gets cut short. What is he accused of lying about? Oh, I'm sure he didn't lie. The former director would never do that, right? Now, Ken Delanian continues on with some more information we'll want to put into our information bag.
Office is expected to charge Tish James, the New York Attorney General, with mortgage fraud.
So not only are we going to get James Comey, we're also going to get Tish James?
And for Donald Trump, we all saw it posted on Truth Social in recent days, exhorting his attorney general to charge both of those people as soon as possible. But again, this is, grand juries are secret. This is a fluid situation. It's also important to know, though, that the U.S. attorney, the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in this office, Eric Siebert, was essentially forced out last week, in part because he was refusing to bring these cases. We're told that he was opposed to prosecuting both James and Comey on these grounds, and he's out. Office is expected.
So the attorney that was basically in the place that was like, I'm not going to do it, it's out. Now they're rushing one in. So we'll see if they can get it done. Those of you that are here with me on Rumble, don't forget, if you didn't already do it, go in and repost the show in the Rumble, right? Go repost. Even if you don't have a bunch of people following you on Rumble, that's okay. Repost it. It tells the algorithm that people like the show enough to share it. And of course, don't forget to like the show. And if you leave a comment on the actual show itself, not just in the live chat, also helps the algorithm. So that's my shameless plug to help me and help this show grow. Okay, so here's some more. This is coming from CNN, and former Congressman Patrick McHenry was on CNN, and he kind of set them straight a little bit as to exactly why it is James Comey is being looked at, and that CNN needs to calm their horses down a little bit.
Step back.
Yeah.
Chuck said, this guy spent 6 years, and you went through this whole line of against the Justice Department and everything else. I wasn't sure if you're thinking Trump or Comey, because what Jim Comey has done is bring ill repute upon the FBI, and not just how he handled Hillary Clinton, but remember at the beginning of that, he said, it's fine. Like her handling of classified information. And
he made himself judge and jury. Yeah.
Right? And punted it. And then only with the realization through massive scandal, a sex scandal, in fact, that a laptop becomes public, did he get forced into a situation that then did Hillary Clinton in. So let's get the whole story here. At the end of the day, no one is saying Jim Comey is not a liar. That is not what this discussion is about. It's about the president and the president's activities. Jim Comey is a liar. The FBI's IG said this going back to 2019. We remember the social media post where he is making himself even more political by inserting himself into politics, saying there's no wiretapping, there's no targeting of Trump, but blah, 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 blah. The 8647 on Instagram. These are astronomically partisan and
but is
worse
being
than
bad
that.
at politics
But
something
worse than
to
that,
be indicted for?
Stupid, completely stupid, which then brings ill repute upon the FBI, which is very important that we have a law enforcement agency and a justice system that is beyond ill repute. But the substance of this is lying before Congress. That is a serious charge that is not often policed, and it needs to be policed.
So no one's arguing that James Comey's not a liar. Yeah, I know. He's a total liar. He's a complete liar. That's the problem. He was the director of the FBI who said that, for walking in the Capitol, the full weight of the federal government needs to come down on you. Well, usually we don't police trespassing, and, a lot of people who've protested at the Capitol got their $65 welcome to DC tickets. So James Comey, I guess if we're just going to go all the way with the letter of the law, that's what you're going to get. Stephen Miller says the same thing.
Stephen, I want to move on to this news that the DOJ is considering indicting former FBI Director James Comey for allegedly lying to Congress. Your reaction tonight?
Well, I don't have any news to make on that subject or question, but I'm always happy to talk about disgraced former FBI Director James Comey, who, of course, is corrupt, who, of course, has been engaged in vast amounts of illicit and unlawful conduct, who, of course, was at the center of the Russiagate attack and assault on American democracy. There are so many people, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Monaco, all across the government under previous administrations who have worked tirelessly to try to dismantle our democracy. And it has to lead somewhere to accountability.
Got to be accountability. And
there has to be accountability. If there's not accountability, they're going to do it again and again and again, because these are the people that have the audacity to say things like this, but never look in the mirror.
No one is above the law, no matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are.
Our job is to follow the facts and the law without fear or favor.
The fact is, no one is above the law.
No one, not even the president, is above the law.
Okay, so here we are. Guess what? You broke the law. It's pretty cut and dry, actually. In fact, we're really surprised why you haven't been indicted thus far. Alex Jones, the king of insider information, he spoke to high-level sources in the White House, and he's pretty sure there's going to be accountability, and not just for Comey.
Well, I just talked to very high-level sources inside the White House, and they have confirmed to me that indeed the new prosecutor they've put in Virginia, because the last one was a deep stater, is set to indict Comey, Letitia James, and others.
But Alex, what do you say to the fact that this new prosecutor in Virginia has never actually tried a case, that he's really just a paper attorney? Do you think he can actually get it done?
And you can guess who those people are. Now, the indictments you'll see within the next 5 days are Letitia James and the disgraced FBI Director James Comey. But then soon after, they already have the grand juries. They've already come back with the indictments. Brennan, Clapper, and of course, Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton. When this happens, the rats inside the globalist system are going to run from the sinking ship ever before. They thought they're invincible. They thought they're above the law. They thought they just had free reign, and you're about to see they don't. They tried to kill Trump twice. They've had a reign of terror against this country. They killed Charlie Kirk. The gloves are off. And I'm told that Kash Patel is actually great, Bongino's great, and that the issue is Pam Bondi. But if Pam Bondi doesn't do her job, she is goodbye. As I said 4 months ago, she's got 6 months. That was what she was given, because the evidence is just open and shut on all this. The globalists wanted a war. They got one. But now is when they're going to launch false flags. Now is when they're going to pull all sorts of shenanigans, because they know the jig's up. And they're not laughing now. God bless President Trump. God bless the United States of America.
Woo-hoo, they are not laughing now. That is true. Okay, we have reached the point in time where I need to go private, because I got to get another hour and a half of private in the next 4 or 5 days. So I'm going to go private on Rumble. Those of you that are Rumble Premium members, and I highly recommend you become one, small price to pay a month, and you get at least a minimum of an additional 5 hours of streaming from me every month. We are going to be going over GB News's assessment on Barack Obama leading the shadow government. We are going to be hearing from Nicole Wallace and from Mark Elias, and we're going to hear from Mark Elias twice. Absolute panic mode. Who's Mark Elias? He's the attorney. He used to be one of the attorneys for Perkins Coie. Then he started his own law firm, and he was Hillary Clinton's main lawyer. He's the one who paid for the Steele dossier through Perkins Coie to Fusion GPS. So he is at the center of this grand conspiracy, and he is in absolute, total, and utter desperation mode. We're going to hear from J.D. Vance. Absolute resolution from the administration that there will be justice. So that's what we're going to be going over on the private. Those of you that are already members of Rumble Premium, you'll be joining us. The rest of you, I guess you'll just taper off slowly. I'm so sorry. I really just want to finish the show with everybody on, but Rumble's being good enough to help us out with the creative program, and they require that I put in a couple hours of private. So we got to do it. Anyways, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sticking with me. Don't forget to repost the show, hit like, leave a comment, all that fun stuff. And for those of you sticking around, we will see you in private.